PanTech Chronicles, Book 1, Shadowfalcon, written by F. Lockhaven and M. A. Owens. Chapter 27. I didn't wait until nightfall. Instead, I walked directly into Ludo's shop, where he also lived midday. I could estimate with confidence that's where the secret cave was located, so the blindfolding was more or less pointless. Then again, it might have actually mattered if Lucille hadn't revealed who furnished the cave, and who their leader was the moment my blindfold was removed. Lucille didn't seem to be the careful type, but bold and definitely smarter than she let on. Ludo was occupied by whatever was on his workbench when I entered, and the bell on the door rang, resonating throughout the small room.
"Welcome,"
he said, still not looking up.
"I've got some new boots in the corner over there to your right, if you'd like to give them a look over. Sized for men and women, and if I don't have your size, I'll make it in your size."
I humored him for a moment, walking to the corner without a word, glancing at the boots. Impeccable quality. Despite the fact Ludo was basically the only serious cobbler in the village, he didn't let that affect his sense of pride in his work. Even if there'd been a dozen others, odds were good he'd still be the best, and probably by no small margin. Hopefully, the same was true for me. I'd like to think so.
You know, they're great, but I think I like the pair I'm wearing better. They fit like they were made just for my feet and legs.
He looked up and grinned, trying to hide his surprise that I'd just dropped in unannounced like this.
"That's because they were made to fit your feet and legs. Kara's estimations were spot on. I believe I told you that you won't find a better pair for as long as you live, especially if you keep living here."
It's funny you say that. Would you mind closing up your shop for a few minutes and heading into the back with me?
He hesitated for a moment, but obliged.
"Sure, I'll flip the sign, and we'll head into the back. If anyone asks, I was showing you some of my new materials."
After flipping the sign and locking the door, Ludo led me through a door in the back, and then through a hidden door in the floor under a table and rug. It was clever. The handle on the door was recessed in the door itself, so you couldn't see any suspicious shapes poking out from under the rug. The tunnel leading down was rough and unfinished. Stone probably almost as old as the sand itself made one path forward, eventually leading into a larger stone space that opened up several times, larger than the tunnel itself. The ceiling was taller than I could reach, but Ludo could reach up and touch it easily. I looked around and saw supplies lining the walls the whole way around. I didn't understand, but I wanted to assume the best.
Why are the supplies still here?
I asked.
"We're keeping them."
He said flatly, and offered no hint of a further explanation.
Wait, why? I thought the entire plan was to distribute these supplies to villagers in need. There's medicine here, and food and water. You could sneak these into homes where PanTech has taken food away from children. The food's eaten. It's not like they can trace that back to us.
"Us? So you've decided to join us then?"
I shouldn't have given him the opening to change the subject the way I had. That was stupid of me. Still, I'd be diplomatic and circle back to it.
Yes, I've decided that I'm going to stay here in the village, regardless of my test results, and continue running the clinic and helping with our cause. Speaking of our cause, when exactly do you intend to distribute these supplies to villagers?
"We're keeping them."
He repeated.
"What helped you to make your decision? Was the commander that rough on you?"
Another deflection, but memories of my interaction with the commander made me feel immediately uncomfortable.
She wasn't so bad.
I lied.
She agreed to amend her report about Linus. Not that it really matters. Probably just a trivial gesture to make me go away and give up my vengeful thoughts.
"And have you given them up?"
He asked.
No,
I snapped.
I have not. Now please stop dodging the question. Why aren't you giving these supplies to the villagers like you said you were going to?
"Maybe I will, eventually. For now, they just go to waste. Think about it, Taylor. For the most part, they're just a bunch of PanTech worshippers. Doesn't that make them just as bad as PanTech, in just about every way that counts?"
What? No, they're just afraid.
"Oh, how many of them stepped in to help your Linus when he needed them? You and he had just saved the village. He was their savior, and yet All they could manage was to gather around and gawk as he lay dying on the ground. In fact, it wasn't until your father learned about what happened that he came and took care of his body. Of course, PanTech dug him up anyway.
They were afraid to help. PanTech soldiers would have stepped in and blown them to pieces.
He shook his head.
Then why should we give them what they were too afraid to take for themselves? Why shouldn't we benefit from the supplies, swell our numbers, expand our operations, be better prepared to strike PanTech when the opportunity arises? Why risk being reported to help trembling idiots who are too afraid to even help themselves, and still find it in their hearts to thank PanTech for all the misery they inflict on their children?
What was there to argue about? He was right in a way, but although he was right, that didn't make what he was doing right. I couldn't come up with a rebuttal. I just stood there, thinking over everything in silence.
Am I wrong? Not everyone is like you and me, Taylor. We don't need the weak around us clinging to us with their open hands outstretched, weighing us down, when our goal is to battle with the strong.
You're not wrong.
I said finally.
I'm going to go. I have a lot to do today. I just wanted to stop by and check on the supplies.
Ludo looked at me, and something in his eyes felt untrusting.
All right. Come by again soon. We should begin discussing our next move. We don't want to miss any opportunities.
I just nodded and left, making my way home. All I wanted to do now was check on Ghost and sit alone in my room for as long as possible. It seemed I wouldn't be able to be the hero I wanted to be, no matter what path I chose, and all those I thought might be heroes were never heroes at all, except for the only one I ever knew, who was now dead. My heart ached, thinking of him again. I wondered if I'd ever stop feeling his hand in mine, and if his smile would ever fade. It seemed to only get clearer as time passed, but only anger could be found where fondness should be. As much as I loved him, I hated those who took him away from me more than that. When I stepped through the door into my home, Mother was sitting at the table. She'd been waiting for me.
"Welcome home,"
she said, smiling.
Thank you. I'm going to be in my room for a bit if you need me.
She patted the seat next to her. I knew what was coming, or at least I thought I did, and I wasn't really in the mood for it. But I obeyed and sat. I hoped I'd be able to brush her off quickly, though I immediately disliked myself for thinking that. She reached out and grabbed my hand, squeezing it tightly. I jerked away quickly, my mind going back to the exact moment where the commander grabbed my hand as I was about to slap her. I gathered myself, took a deep breath, and placed my hand back on the table next to hers.
"Taylor, are you all right?"
I shook my head.
I'm all right, Mother. Sorry. What did you want to talk about?
She frowned. Clearly, she did not believe I was all right, but didn't want to argue with me. She was right, though. I wasn't all right. I was far from it, and I wondered if I'd ever be all right again for as long as I lived.
"I spoke to Ferris when he returned. He wanted me to talk to you. I wanted to talk to you, and your father agreed to let me do it with just the two of us so you wouldn't feel ganged up on. I sent them out for a while to run some errands."
She reached out and moved a strand of hair out of my eyes, and I again felt uncomfortable remembering my meeting with the commander.
"We're really worried about you, Taylor."
It was always Mother's way to scold and demand, rarely to ask and be kind. She must have truly been afraid for me, for her to speak this way.
I'm all right, Mother. Just the exams coming up and everything that happened with Linus and having to lose sleep to go out and train Ghost. I'm just under a lot of stress, you know?
I lied.
"If you were in trouble, you would come to us for help, right? I always wanted you to see PanTech the way they ask us to see them. The way I saw them when they saved me from the awful life I was living, because I knew that would make your life easier and make you less conflicted about your path forward in life. Now that I see that you're determined to think differently, I want you to know that I support you anyway, that your father and I love you, and that Ferris loves you too."
My fingers began to tremble without realizing it, and my vision became blurry with the tears that had started to flow. I flung my arms around her and released my pent-up emotions on her like a sandstorm.
Oh, Mother, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know what's right and what's wrong. I don't know who's good and who's evil. I can't tell the right path from the wrong one, and I hate everything. I hate so much. I'm so angry. I want them to pay for what they did to Linus, but I still want to help people. I still see his face every day. Every time I close my eyes, I see his death, and I feel his kiss on my lips, and that wound, I see him dying, and it makes me so angry, but so sad too. I don't know who I am anymore.
She wrapped her arms around me and stroked my hair.
Shh, it's all right. When you can't make sense of the world around you, always remember to trust yourself most of all. Don't believe what you see or what you hear if your gut tells you that it's wrong.
I nodded. My gut wasn't telling me much. All it wanted to do was tie itself into knots and make me feel sick. It didn't even want food anymore, like a normal gut should. How was I supposed to trust that?
Thank you. I think I'm going to go rest in my room for a while.
She nodded, moving her hand to my shoulder before letting me go completely.
That's good. If you haven't heard, testing is tomorrow. You should get some rest. Ferris said you declared animal medicine. I'm sure you'll make everyone proud, but make yourself proud first. Don't worry about what everyone else wants until you get what you want.
Tomorrow?
I asked, surprised. I hadn't realized it would be so soon. Would Mother really not be disappointed when she found out that, even if I passed, I was rejecting the invitation and staying in the village? I was too tired to think about it anymore. I went to my room and, in the privacy behind my closed door, told Ghost everything about what happened. It was somehow therapeutic to give the full, unabridged truth to someone who couldn't repeat it. Exhausted, I quickly drifted off into sleep. Chapter 28. At last, the day had arrived. The day we were all told to look forward to, but filled nearly all of us with endless dread. The exam was extremely difficult to pass, and only a few passed each year. Sometimes none at all. You only had one shot, and if you failed forever. There were no retakes, no do-overs, no second chances. Some were insane enough to revoke their admission into PanTech. The only person I'd ever heard of to do this was my father, a brilliant inventor who was dedicated to improving the lives of everyone in the village, soon after barred from building anything that would reduce the adversity score of our village's children. If he didn't, soldiers would have to create more adversity themselves to fill the gap. Confiscating food, sabotaging our drinking systems, or worse. Who wouldn't want to leave such a place to join a different world? A world of infinite technological advancement. A world without adversity scores, where it was decided that you'd already paid your dues and you could now live in comfort and luxury. Scientific discovery and power, unlike anything any of us could even conceive of, and I decided to forsake it all. Despite that, I still needed to do my best on the exam. Otherwise, what meaning would the gesture have? If I failed the exam and decided to stay, it would mean nothing. Leaving wouldn't be offered. No, I had to pass and throw the best score I could manage into their faces. Ferris was up before me, as unpredictable as ever, and had made all of us breakfast, including Father, who was his usual quiet self this morning. He puffed on his pipe, but wasn't reading or writing this time, simply absorbed in an apparent daydream, which he was unable to escape from, save for the absolutely minimal effort required to lift his pipe to his lips and pull a few puffs from it.
Father, are you all right?
I asked. At first, he didn't answer, still trapped in whatever waking dream held him.
Father?
I spoke again, louder this time, as I sat down at the table. He heard me that time, smiling and nodding, before going quiet again.
You seem troubled. Are you worried for Ferris and me?
He sighed and sat down his pipe on the small leather stand in front of him.
Not worried. Just sad, I suppose, in a way. There's a chance that both of my children will be leaving forever, and I'll never see them again.
Will you be upset if we join PanTech?
I asked, genuinely curious. It was a question I'd been wondering the answer to, but given everything that had happened recently, I hadn't had the chance to ask.
Your mother and I discussed it. We've agreed that our personal feelings about this decision should be secondary to your own. We will support you. Pass or fail. Go or stay.
Mother walked over behind him and placed both hands on his shoulders. He brought his hand up and squeezed hers. I'd prepared myself for uncomfortable questions from everyone this morning, but hoped they wouldn't come. As we all sat around the table, eating our breakfast, tension filled my stomach, both with the anticipation of the upcoming event and knowing that these questions from my family could still come at any time. But, after we'd finished our breakfast, and Ferris and I prepared our packs for whatever was to come, the questions never came. In fact, nothing ever came. Beyond my brief exchange with Father at the table when I first arrived, not another word was uttered. Ferris and I continued to walk in silence slowly out the village and toward the tent set up for testing. There were 2 tents now, instead of just the one, and we soon found out why testing was divided among those seeking to become soldiers and everyone else. Soldier candidates would also be supervised by the commander and submitted to an intense physical trial. Ferris was light-hearted, but as all the young women in the village liked to remind me of frequently, he was also a physical specimen. He hadn't chosen a profession in the village, but he found enjoyment in hard labor. If something broke, he was first in line to help fix it. If heavy things needed to be moved from one place to another, he was happy to help. And, unfortunately, if someone were to call out for a young man to remove his shirt and be gawked at by all the pretty young women in the village, he'd probably be at the front of that line too. As for me, I was happy that I wouldn't have to see the commander today, though I'd prefer it if it were never again. We sat at desks, and a stack of paper was thrown down in front of us. The same older man in the white coat and glasses from yesterday paced in front of us, his hands clasped behind his back.
This is going to take all day, perhaps into the night, so I'd advise you to get comfortable and begin thinking of how you'll resist complaint. This will either be the proudest or, for many of you, the most disappointing day in your life. The majority of you will likely fail this exam. There is no shame in that. I wish only to instill in you a comprehension of the seriousness of each and every question. Each test has been tailored specifically to each of you based on your declared focus of study. And if you find that any questions are unfair, you are mistaken. If you find them to be too difficult, you are right. If you have any questions, that is too bad. I will not be answering them. Once you complete your exam, you will wait until everyone else has as well. Results are produced instantly. Curious how that is possible? If you pass, you will learn that and more, and if you fail, you will never know, nor will you ever need to know. Begin.
I opened the paper packet and held the first sheet up to the light, which drew an instant and intense glare from the man. Hoping to avoid any confrontations with him today, I gave up on that little experiment pretty quickly, though I could have sworn I saw something woven inside the paper. This was no doubt some sort of PanTech advanced technology and had something to do with how the results were determined instantly. After I sat the paper back down in front of me, I could have sworn I saw the man grinning at his desk, still looking at me. 2 soldiers were in the tent with us, no doubt to protect those administering the tests from a potential rebel attack. Including the commander, and assuming there was another soldier in that tent, meant that all available soldiers were preoccupied with testing. It's a shame Ludo and the others didn't know that. What a golden opportunity. One that would, no doubt, go to waste. As I moved through each sheet answering questions, I couldn't help but be distracted by the thoughts of Ludo and what he'd done, or more specifically, not done with the supplies, and what he'd said about the other villagers. He'd lied to me. He didn't want to help the villagers. He only wanted to help himself. Helping them was just an unintended consequence if he ever helped them at all. Was this really any different from the hubris of PanTech? Then again, Ludo wasn't my enemy. PanTech was. So, it didn't matter. I remained focused throughout the remainder of my exam, sure to give everything I had to each and every question, reading and rereading each one. I was prepared to take all night if I had to, and make everyone wait for me to finish. But it did not come to that. To my surprise, I was the first to finish. I handed the man my stack of papers, and he only pointed to my seat in return. For hours I sat, letting my mind wander to all the places it had taken refuge over the past weeks. Thoughts of Linus, mostly, filled my mind. I saw him everywhere, and everything seemed to remind me of him. I wondered if I would ever be able to go a day without mourning him, but I knew that such a day would eventually come, even if I didn't feel like it would right now. Time heals wounds, but not always. Sometimes time spreads them wide and allows things to enter and fester, only deepening the wound and making them worse. Even time couldn't be counted on. At last, in the late hours of the evening, the final villager handed in their exam. Everyone had begun chattering amongst themselves, including the soldiers who stood behind the man overseeing the exams. At first, I thought hearing Linus's name was just my thoughts echoing from inside my mind. I nearly dismissed it outright, but listening closely, even from the back of the line, I heard it again.
Linus was supposed to be overseeing this. I had the night scheduled off.
A male soldier remarked.
Found a way to be a pain in the backside even in death. I'm impressed,
Replied the female soldier's voice.
Yeah, truth be told, I miss him. Can't say the same for Peter. It's a shame that Cobbler reported Linus. Otherwise, the commander would have never sent Peter and Oscar to collect him. He'd still be here, and I'd be back at camp enjoying some drinks.
My blood ran cold, and I froze in place. Every cell of my blood seemed to catch fire all at once, and I thought my skin might melt off my body or burst into flames too. The room began to sway, and I fought the feeling that I might faint. My mind collapsed in on itself, and the room went deathly quiet. I couldn't hear the soldiers, nor the villagers, nor the man give the results to each eager person standing in line. I didn't notice the excitement or the disappointment. I didn't feel the hurt in their voices or the life-changing happiness. I only felt rage, and it threatened to burn me to ashes. I turned and started to walk from the tent.
Where are you going?
The man shouted behind me.
You're not allowed to leave until everyone receives their results. Get back in line.
I ignored him completely, running from the tent toward home. I didn't slow down until I got to the door, where I took a deep breath and fought for the last shreds of composure I could muster so as not to alarm Mother and Father. I stepped inside.
Welcome home, Taylor. How did it go?
Mother asked.
Oh, I'll be getting my results soon. I was worried I forgot to lock Ghost's cage properly in the excitement of the morning, and the man overseeing the tests was nice enough to let me run home. I'm afraid I can't stay long, though. Sorry.
I didn't wait for an answer. I ran into my room and collected 2 of my knives. One I hid in my pack, and the other I stuffed into my boot. I looked at Ghost, who was noticeably distressed, and spoke to him in a quiet voice.
It's okay, my friend. It's likely I won't be back, but this is good news for you.
I reached out and opened the door of his cage, and he tilted his head in response. I then raised the small window on the wall near my ceiling, just large enough for him to fit through.
I'm setting you free. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the purpose you've given me, for all that you've given me, and I'm sorry. I love you, Ghost. May your hunts always succeed, and may your kills always be swift, but maybe avoid foxes from now on.
I reached gently into the cage, hesitating at first, knowing one tiny drop of his toxin would paralyze me for a full day at best. But he didn't appear alarmed. I stroked his back, then turned and left the room, my rage finally tempered by the sorrow that I'd never see my friend again. Chapter 29. Many were still outside their homes, waiting to comfort or potentially congratulate their children, their child's friend, or neighbor. It was impossible to be subtle right now, but right now was the time I had, and nothing was going to stop me from doing what I needed to do. But what did I need to do? What did I want to do? I could sneak up behind him and bury my knife into his back, but more than anything else, I wanted to know why. Why, if he knew what Linus was doing, would he report him and set the events in motion that would kill him? He was helping me. He was helping the village, He saved so many and was willing to risk his life to do it. He had to pay. There was no forgiving this. There was no letting it go. I stood in front of his door. I checked the handle. Locked. And the sign said closed. I hammered the wooden door with my fist.
Ludo, get out here!
I shouted.
We're closed. Come back tomorrow.
He shouted in return. I hammered on the door again.
It's Taylor! Get out here, now!
I heard him unlocking the door and stepped back several steps to give myself distance. Ludo was almost triple my size, and there'd be no escape if he grabbed me. He stepped outside, looking around at all the onlookers who had started watching us now.
Can't this wait until tomorrow?
He asked nervously.
No, it can't wait another second. Why did you report Linus? If you'd been watching us, you knew what he was doing. Why did you do it?
He laughed, watching the faces of everyone around him.
I don't know what you're talking about. Go home, Taylor.
He turned to walk back into his house, and I threw my knife into his door. He turned around slowly, clenching his teeth.
Because he was PanTech scum, Taylor. What more reason do I need?
Scum? He saved everyone from the giant snake PanTech brought. If you knew enough to report him, I know you knew about it. He was on our side. He risked his life for us. For you.
For me? When my father was dying and needed medicine, where was Linus when the soldiers refused to trade for it? Where was Linus when PanTech decided I'd had things too easy? Maybe seeing my father die an agonizing death would toughen me up. Well, it did toughen me up, Taylor. So long as he wore that armor, he was my enemy. We got 3 of them with one trick by pitting them against each other. That's a good start, but now you've gone and ruined all of that. All of our plans, all of our progress, all because you wanted to make a spectacle of everything. So you've come here to kill me, have you? Here I am.
He reached onto his belt and pulled out his knife, and I pulled mine from my boot. He took several steps toward me, but I held my ground, ready for any opening I could find. He broke out into a run, holding his knife above his head. I held mine in front of me and braced the hilt with my other hand. If I landed the hit, it needed to go deep. I lunged forward and extended my arms, hoping my speed advantage would end the fight quickly. But the speed advantage I thought I had turned out to be wishful thinking. He blocked the thrust with his left hand, taking the knife blade into his palm, all the way to the hilt. Blood dripped from his hand onto the knife and my hands. He brought his knife down above me. I raised my leg and slammed my foot into the side of his knee, causing him to miss my neck, but the knife slashed deep across the back of my shoulder. I bit into his right arm and held tight. I thought my teeth would come out as he tried to pull away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his headbutt coming, but there was nothing I could do. It was better than getting stabbed by the knife. The first hit gave me a false sense of confidence that I could take it, but the second one sent me to my knees, and I lost my grip on both his arm and my knife.
Someone help her.
I thought I heard someone shout.
But she attacked him first.
Shouted another.
Hurry, get the soldiers!
Another voice boomed. He brought his knife down again, and I shot my palm up into his nose, sending him stumbling back a couple of steps. But he countered quickly with a punch to my jaw, and I thought again that I'd lose consciousness. Somehow I didn't, but it didn't matter. I felt dead on my feet. My arms were numb, and I couldn't lift them. My vision was blurry, and I swayed on my feet. Another punch hit me in the face, and blood poured out of my nose onto the ground in front of me, sending me stumbling backward. Only Ludo caught me before I could fall to the ground, holding both hands tightly around my neck, squeezing. The shouting of the people around us intensified as the crowd grew. Several people tried to step in and stop him, but they weren't able to pull his hands free. Before enough of them could grab him, I saw the other rebels run out of the door and begin fighting them off. Even without knowing what was going on, they ran to their leader's aid. But who was I kidding? They knew exactly what was going on. This seemed like a plan Lucille would come up with. This one didn't have any fatal flaws. It had worked. But that couldn't be right. Most likely, she would have never risked recruiting me, which could only mean one thing. She was unaware. This was all Ludo's doing, and he assumed I would never find out. I almost didn't. All at once, his grip loosened. I choked and coughed as I was able to breathe again, all of my blood flowing into my head again. My eyes began to clear, and I could see what happened, but couldn't make sense of it. Ludo's neck had a horrible wound, and blood ran down onto his shoulder. He was frozen in place. He faced straight ahead, his arms falling loose to his side. His eyes were full of fear as he looked around in horror, unable to process what had happened to him. Wing beats boomed as the falcon slowed on his next circle around, and he landed down onto my arm, sinking his claws in deep. The blood from Ludo's neck slowed as he collapsed onto the ground. Lucille screamed and raised her knife, starting to rush toward me. Ghost beat his wings at her approach, and upon seeing him clearly, she immediately dropped her knife and fell backward. Cairn, who had been next to her, did the same.
That's...
He started to speak, but stopped and scrambled to his knees.
Oh, God,
He said, clasping his hands together. Lucille gathered herself and reached for her knife, but Cairn grabbed her arm.
no. Don't you see what that is? This is an omen. The gods have spoken. Don't provoke their wrath, please.
He begged. I looked behind me, saw Heather and Lapis being held on the ground, and realized it was Mother who was holding them there. I hadn't even noticed she'd arrived. Father was standing behind her, but was breathing hard enough that I could tell he'd only just caught up. Did Mother really disable both of them that quickly? Before I could speak, the loud stomping of armored feet filled the momentarily quiet air with the sound of a new threat. The commander arrived with 2 soldiers, as well as Ferris.
Ha!
The commander bellowed.
You did it. You had me fooled. I never thought, what's that?
She asked, nodding to Ghost.
A new species for me to send to the university.
No,
I shouted.
he's mine. He's staying with me. You said I could bring a native animal with me to study. This is it. I choose the Shadowfalcon.
First of all, girl, those aren't real.
She said, almost reflexively.
We've looked for them. What's this, some kind of cleverly disguised vulture? Second of all, how do you know you even passed your exam?
I didn't answer. The blood from my arm stained the sand below me, where Ghost's talons sank in.
All right, well, regardless, I keep my promises.
She looked to the soldiers beside her.
Arrest these rebels and the chieftain for his incompetence. We'll find someone better to do the job this time. And this village used to be so well behaved.
As she was walking away, she looked back over her shoulder.
Of course you passed, by the way. You'll be going to the university. You can take that, whatever it is, with you.
One of the soldiers flung Ludo over his shoulder and held the other rebels at gunpoint, ordering them to walk in front of him. Once they were gone, everyone continued to stand around me. At first, I was oblivious, but after a few minutes, I realized everyone was waiting for me to say something. Several people had already gotten onto their knees and clasped their hands together, especially the older villagers, in reverence to Ghost. Do I speak honestly to them? Do I tell them he's just a bird? And even when I set him free, he simply reverted to his training. Only, I'd given him no command. Did I really believe what I'd been saying anymore? There was definitely more to Ghost than I'd originally thought. How much more and what, I didn't know. No, sometimes hope in a lie was better than no hope at all.
Everyone, what you see before you is real, an omen of hope in a bright future to come. A Shadowfalcon. He has chosen me to bring about this new future, and he will accompany me along the way. Better days are ahead, not just for the village, but for the entire world. I'll be leaving soon, but I will never forget all of you. Please, be good to each other.
Once home, Mother tended to my wounds again. Ferris and I said our goodbyes to everyone. Kara apologized to me endlessly again for what Ludo had done. She hadn't known about any of it. 5 of us had passed the exam this year, including Ferris and the other soldier, but it was unlikely any of us would ever see each other again. I was both excited to take part in this groundbreaking animal research and terrified at the same time of what it might mean. The events of the recent days made me feel as though the decision had been made for me by some higher power, chance, the universe, whatever you'd want to call it. But I was going to make the most of it. Other heroes had made a difference in my life, and I would never forget them. It was time for me to become the hero of my own story. PanTech, you'd better get ready because I'm coming for you. Epilogue.
Come on, it's not like you don't know how pointless this is to have as a vanity project. Put your own ambitions aside and let the military take charge.
The giant man ran his hand over his long black beard, patiently waiting to see if his adversary would take the bait.
Huh.
The thin, bespectacled man chuckled.
Vanity project, you say? Ambition, you say? You are one to talk, General. Your post is as useless as you are, and your words are as hollow as the paper enemies you imagine. Why the President keeps you around is beyond my ability to comprehend. The project will remain with me, and if you speak to me with due respect, you will perhaps benefit from my research.
Struggling at his own game, the general clenched his teeth, fighting to maintain his composure.
The President keeps me around, lab coat, because I keep him around. I monitor every uprising attempt reported by every commander in my service, from the small but disciplined armies to the back alley riff-raff. I know about it all, and I make sure it is dealt with swiftly and productively. And don't forget, I make sure we stay prepared for another incident like we had 100 years ago.
Lab coat? My, you are so very clever, General. You mean the Eastern invasion? Be careful, you'll sprain your shoulder trying so hard to pat your own back. Not only was that before our time, but it was also an incident hardly worthy of note. By the way, Professor would be far more dignified on your part, would it not? You wouldn't want your soldiers to hear you be so disrespectful to a man of high station, such as myself, would you? Imagine the scandal.
The general sighed.
I'll speak to the President. Professor, we'll see what he has to say about all of this. If the Eastern invasion were such a trivial matter, then why are we still talking about it 100 years later?
General, you are trying my patience, as I'm sure is your intent. At least you will find my agreement that you are indeed good at something. PanTech controls all territories on the planet now. There are no longer any independent foreign territories. Who do you suppose will threaten us? Some remote, indigenous tribe somewhere that we've somehow not accounted for? Really, you should be in charge of the College of Theater, not adversity management. Your flair for the dramatic is truly a spectacle worthy of marvel.
The thin man flipped his blonde ponytail from his shoulder to his back, and despite his thinner frame, seemed to be enjoying his nearly full head of height advantage over the general a bit too much.
Fine. Clearly you have a lot invested in this project. After all, it is the single greatest possible advancement to the College of Animal Studies. I'd imagine it is frustrating for you, being a man of genius and so poorly regarded by our president, that you are relegated to animals, leaving the human studies to more capable men and women, and the purpose of the project? What a joke. How could you possibly take pride in creating designer pets, a man of your genius cleaning out litter boxes and dog kennels all day?
The blonde man sighed and pushed up his glasses.
General, while it may be true that you are the preferred lapdog of the President, you have whispered paranoia into his ear for so many years. But I'll have you know that because of my research, PanTech will mark one of its greatest scientific breakthroughs in the past 50 years. This will have an impact far beyond my dying day, which I'm sure you hope will be soon, and my name will be written in our history books and taught in our classrooms, while yours, well, for what purpose would yours be included? Wasting our resources on over-preparation for another invasion that will never come is hardly noteworthy. Wouldn't you agree?
Without me, are you certain your name will be worth writing either? A designer cat, capable of saying hello to his lazy, overindulged owner, while impressive from a scientific standpoint, is not the sort of thing you remember who was responsible for. Now take, for instance, war dogs that are capable of following and understanding commands and—
Talking war dogs? Really, General? I thought you had no interest in talking to animals.
You didn't let me finish, Professor. You want me to stop being so paranoid? Imagine the potential to monitor adversity zones if we were able to send in, say, A bird who could listen to conversations and report back her findings. A mouse, crawling beneath the boards of a home, who hears the very moment a man speaks to his family about creating any sort of uprising. You want me to be less paranoid? What better way than this? I'd no longer have to worry, knowing that everything was being effectively monitored and well in hand. No more surprises, like we keep running into, they aren't threatening now. But if you let any problem go long enough ignored, it will fester. Sooner or later they will become emboldened and find a way to operate outside of our knowledge, just as they did 100 years ago. However, this time, we'd know about it long before it mattered. We could all relax, but most of all, the president could relax. Don't you want him to focus more of his attention on scientific endeavors again, rather than my military projects? This could be your way to earn his favor and set yourself up for approval of your future project proposals. How many of them have been turned down in the past decade alone, Professor?
The professor sat quietly for a long time and began to gently tap on the wooden desk in front of him, his eyes locked with the general's.
I'm not an unreasonable man, General. If you speak reason to me, I am certainly open to changing my mind. Let's say I accept your logic in this particular circumstance. What do you propose?
The general removed his hat and rubbed his hand along his slicked-back hair, fixing the few strays that had begun to jut out.
I'm so glad you asked, Professor. I saw the sparkle in your eye when I mentioned the animal spying idea. What if we repurpose your animal intelligence evolution project to this goal, ensuring PanTech is safe for many years to come?
The professor shook his head.
No, I'm afraid I need to remain true to the original stated goal, which is to produce intelligent pets who provide a more complete companionship for their caretakers. If I change the scope of the project, I will have to apply again. If I do that, I risk being denied yet again, and even with your support, I simply cannot risk it.
The general sighed, tapping his finger on his chin.
I see.
However,
the professor said, holding up his finger with a grin,
if we consider this project to have the true purpose of placing these intelligent pets in homes across PanTech, and, out of our shared interest in maintaining PanTech's goal of controlled adversity, we extend these pets to many homes within the adversity zones as well.
The general grinned.
Thereby remaining true to the original stated goal of the project. I see. Professor, you are indeed as clever and capable as everyone says you are. I apologize for my earlier disrespect. Clearly, I have not spent enough time around you in person, and in error, I seem to have misjudged you.
Likewise, General, I will offer you the same apology. Together, let us solidify the happiness of all PanTech employees.
And the efficient control of all its citizens, guaranteeing we continue to become stronger through adversity.
The general added. The professor smiled and reached into his desk, pulling out a bottle and 2 glasses.
A toast?
The general smiled to his new friend.
Of course.
After pouring the 2 glasses nearly full, the professor slid one toward the uniformed man who sat across from him, a symbol of his new respect.
To friends?
The professor tilted his head slightly, his glass outstretched.
To friends, to partners, to strength through adversity. Strength through adversity.
Strength through adversity.
The 2 men shouted in nearly one voice, bringing the glasses to their lips and drinking the contents dry. If you're enjoying F. Lockhaven's audio content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way to help out the channel.